Hello, everyone. Alexandra here. If you're just tuning in to the podcast for the very first time, welcome to Take a Chance on You. If you're a long-time listener, welcome back. We're into season 2, Leaders on Their Way and Aspiring. Season 1, we covered hidden talent, where I explored students and young people entering the workforce, going through their applications for apprenticeships, internships, they're volunteering, and they really relate their stories for the very first time. Season 2, with leaders, we have some fantastic guests joining me to discuss some of the challenges that they're facing, what it means to be a leader in 2025 and beyond. So I'm so excited to have you here. I think what's really unique and special about Take a Chance on You is it was born out of an idea that I had from networking here in London in 2024. I was talking to strangers. I'd meet them for the first time and we talk about the challenges we were facing together, lack of community, resources, and being able to have easy flowing conversations. And I always said to myself, if I was going to launch a podcast, it would be to reflect that and to continue those conversations. So Take a Chance on You is very special. As I say, we're into season 2. I'm so excited to have you here and I hope you enjoy the episodes to come.
Feeling lost in the noise of social media? Inspo cuts through the clutter, connecting you directly with real insights from real experts and industry leaders. It's a new social network dedicated to knowledge sharing, industry insights, and thought leadership. Get the latest from top minds in your field, or build your own thought leadership portfolio on Inspo. Already trusted by thousands of professionals worldwide, be part of the conversation and download Inspo Experts today on the App Store or visit www.inspo.expert.
Welcome back to the Take a Chance on You podcast, hosted by me, Alexandra Forsyth. Today, I am so excited to be passing the mic to Richard Elsey, who is the founder and director of the Thoughtful Learning Company. They offer the flagship 5 Steps to 5 Stars program alongside premium learning services. Richard, how are you doing?
Lovely to be here. Thank you very much. I'm doing great. How are you?
Amazing. I'm doing well. Today, for season 2, it's leaders aspiring and on their way. Richard, you're very much a leader in your field, talking about customer service and learning. So do you want to give the listeners just a little bit of an insight into who you are, how you came about kind of specialising in the learning customer service field, and where the love's come from, really?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm the founder and director of the Thoughtful Learning Company, and we're a boutique learning and development consultancy specialising in all things premium customer service. And so I characterise myself as perhaps the UK's leading voice in premium customer service and helping businesses improve their levels of service through a variety of different learning and development interventions and modalities of learning. My passion for service really, started, I think, way back when I was a teenager. My very first job, believe it or not, I was customer facing, so serving the public. And it was at a small farm in West Sussex, which had a tea room and a gift shop, and they did kids' parties and pony rides and things. And I just knew I loved working in an industry where I was in the act of serving others. I just knew that I wanted to stay in that sector and work with people. I've always found working with people and trying to deliver a great level of service very interesting. Believe me, it's not that easy. It can be quite, at times, dealing with good old Joe Public, but on the whole, it can be immensely
I think that's fantastic, kind of that act of service, excuse me, that act of service, wanting to give back to people and make sure that they have everything that they need. I'm very much the same. My first roles were in waitressing, and I waitressed for years and years in restaurants, hotels, pubs as well. And I always found this fulfillment, and it was very purpose driven. Even though you are obviously getting paid, it is a job to a certain extent. It's very much, you pick this type of role because it's public facing, you want to speak to others and make sure that they're well accommodated for. So yeah, it's fantastic to hear that. And as you say, you understand it from an earlier age. But I've found as I've gotten older, it's become more apparent in the roles that I take on now, how much I actually love speaking to other people and how much I take value in feedback and what they have to say to me as well. And it's improvement constantly.
Yeah, and I think whether you're lifelonger in the service or hospitality industry, or whether you're using it as a more of a short-term stopgap thing, you've got to have that interest, that love, maybe that even that passion for wanting to serve others, to be in that act of service, because that's, it's a very hard thing to teach. Some would say it's impossible. It's got to come from within, and if you are interested in being in a hospitality and service environment and being in the act of serving others and getting that gratification and that reward and that lovely feeling, that fuzzy feeling that when you deliver great service, it is so gratifying, to see a guest, a visitor, whoever it is, really enjoys that moment, that interaction. You're helping them and you're delivering a great experience. That's thoroughly rewarding in my book, and quite unique to the industry that I've been privileged to work in.
And we've been talking prior to the podcast about how dynamics have changed in customer service since the COVID-19 pandemic. I think for me, I've always said that people feel a little bit more socially isolated. There's anxious feelings about going out and about again. So in the space of customer service, people really want to receive, a good quality service. They want to feel as though they're a part of something with a brand, especially if they've been with that brand for a number of years. They want to be reminded that this is why they've chosen them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you and I have spoken about this, and I think a lot of the listeners out there today will identify with how perhaps service, maybe our perception towards service has been that it's decreased since COVID. And there's lots of reasons why that may be. But what I do know is that we've got quite a task on our hands to try and improve levels of service, whether you're here in the UK or further afield. I think there's a consistency here around what is needed, and that is that the customer expectation is a lot higher with the economic challenges that we've seen globally, and prices rising. Consumers have a higher expectation. If they're paying more for something, whether it's a product or a service, well, they probably want a better level of customer service that goes with that. I know I do. So service givers so the bad news is service givers have a tougher job to do to meet that expectation. But I think, the good news is that we've never been more in such a technological and information age, and we've got AI to help us, where we can really try and use some data to understand, well, what is the level of service that we're trying to deliver? How can we work better as a business, as a team, as a leader, as a unit to deliver the service that ultimately accompanies that product or that service that we are delivering to that end customer, to really deliver value, to stand out from our competitors, and to drive that loyalty, which I know every business is trying to sustain and look towards, particularly in tougher economic times. And you mentioned, feeling isolated, and I know that some of the workforce now that work in service and hospitality perhaps struggle with the skills to be able to connect with other humans on an empathetic basis, on a caring basis, because we have engineered society in a way where we are a little bit hidden away and individual at times.
Definitely. And I really love what you mentioned about loyalty, because that extends to all industries, really. Anybody that's selling a product to a customer, they want to retain that loyalty. It's not about short-term wins, it's about long-term gains. Longevity of a brand really comes down to customer satisfaction and the reputation that they hold. And I don't think all brands are actually aware of that, especially when you start out as a business. Really, you're just thinking about revenue and financial gain just to keep you afloat, keep you going. But over time, that does naturally need to shift in terms of it is about the customers that you're serving and making sure you have the right customers that suit your brand as well, because it's a two-way street. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think the old adage or the old cliche that people buy from people hasn't really changed over
No,
time.
it's
It, you
increased,
know,
really.
it has, hasn't
Definitely, if we
it?
it has, and it reminds me of kind of influencer culture now and content creation and social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook Marketplace. You're buying from people. Realistically, you're viewing the content. They're showing you a product that they're using, and you're deciding whether you want to invest.
Absolutely. I don't think that human behaviour will really change. I think
No,
that's how we're wired. There's lots of neuroscience around that, as you know, and we look for certain characteristics. When we're buying something or when we're engaging in the act of service, there are certain needs that we are absolutely looking for and we expect, and that will come from a human at some point along the way. We may be engaging, online through AI, but it's that human interaction that really makes the customer experience come alive. And whether you're traveling through an airport and going through e-gates and self-service check-ins, at some point you will interact with a human, and that will be the memorable moment. Same in retail or in a hotel, and there's a lot of self-service touch points now. But it's those human elements that are even more important, and the pressure is on to get them even more right every time, consistently.
I agree. It's also storytelling comes up when you think about people to people, personal stories. For example, if I go to a bookshop, I can quite easily find what I'm looking for. I can ask somebody for recommendations, or I can scour the shelves and pick something out. But if I speak to a friend or an acquaintance and they tell me about this fantastic book and their eyes are lighting up and they're telling me this riveting story about how it's changed their lives or they've learned something new, I'm more than likely going to go off their recommendation because I fed into that story that they've told me, and now I'm invested. So it's the same with customer service.
It really is. And I mean, you remind me of I've just returned from the northeast of England, and there's a very famous bookshop in a town called Alnwick, which has been there for many, many years. And I think it's the UK's biggest secondhand bookshop. It's called Barter Books. And
Mm.
one thing they do there is ironically, the act of storytelling, whether you're
Mm.
actually looking around the bookshop or you're in the charming cafeteria having, some afternoon tea or sort of lunch. They go out of their way really to involve the customer in the customer experience by talking about the history and heritage of the establishment and why it's so important, not just the tourism there, but the people of Alnwick, and how it's also that building was really part of the railway heritage of the area. So
Mm.
that's just a little anecdotal
You learn
example of,
something. Yeah, you
yeah, we
learn
learned,
something along the way. Mm.
yeah,
Which I find fascinating because I'm so open to learning, and it actually brings me on to a point with yourself. Talk to me a little bit more about the flagship 5 Steps to 5 Stars program and how you're teaching customer service to others and how they can get better.
yeah. Well, as you said, our signature program at the Thoughtful Learning Company is our 5 Steps to 5 Stars, and it really is a distillation of all my years of experience in various hospitality environments. And so to rewind the clock back a bit, I did many years, so 15 years with British Airways, and started out as cabin crew flying around, having a great time and
That's
becoming
fascinating.
um,
Did you get to go
doing
to some beautiful parts of the world?
I did. Very fortunate to get to do some wonderful destinations, and then some trips as well that you're thinking, oh, don't really fancy doing that. I'd stay doing a Glasgow Manchester double, for instance. Not that exciting, but still, you make the day what you do, what you can,
Mm.
and still have a great day with the crew and passengers that you're serving. And then I moved into training and development within British Airways, and was in charge on board the aircraft as well, sort of inspiring teams to try and deliver great service consistently. And that took me into the area of premium service training and, running programs for a business class and Club World cabin crew. And of course, British Airways is an iconic global brand. It was, the pressure was on to get the program right and try and ensure that levels of service in those premium cabins were ever improving and competing against, well, of course, the Middle East carriers, which are doing and have done incredible things over the last few decades. And then after the airlines, I moved into luxury hospitality. So I worked at the Dorchester Collection for a while as performance improvement manager, really understanding how the hotel hospitality world is measured and aligned to certain verification criteria. For example, Forbes Travel Guide, who assess and verify luxury. And for high-end hotels, the gold standard really is those Forbes 5 stars on the front of the hotel. So lots of very detailed customer standards that need to be achieved, not just here and there, but consistently across all departments and day in, day out, because you never know when your inspection is going to be. So really it was a kind of distillation of my experience there, and of course latterly with Hilton Hotels, and there's some lovely luxury hotels in the portfolio at Hilton. And I took all that learning and put it into a program, the 5 Steps to 5 Stars, which is something that leaders, businesses and individuals can follow step by step to try and elevate their levels of service. As you would imagine, the fundamentals of premium service are in there. So elements of personalization, how you personalize that interaction with each guest across multiple touch points, and the anticipatory service, the attention to detail, and the thoughtful behaviors, the thoughtful knowledge, which is why I named my company the Thoughtful Learning Company, because thoughtfulness is such an incredible hallmark of great service. And that comes together and culminates into your personal brand, who you are, how you show up and present yourself and choose to switch on and engage with the customer, the brand, the business that you are representing.
It's so interesting, the idea of personal brand. I feel like the phrase personal brand has really skyrocketed this year. Possibly 2024 as well. We're really feeling this sense of, and I don't know whether it's more of a generational thing. We've got Gen Z who are late Gen Z now at 25, 26, and then we've got Gen Alpha who are around, the oldest Gen Alpha will be around 14 to 15 now. I think we're really starting to see kind of in the workplace, not just having the one standard role or the one standard project, but actually building yourself up to be multifaceted, to work across multiple different areas of the business, marketing, sales, and then the operations side, but also outside of the workplace. Who are you? And that's, to your point, really cultivating what are your values, what do you stand for, do they align with the business, do you have a blog, do you have a portfolio that you can refer back to and say this is who I am as well as my career. So it's personal brand, it's huge now, and people are really investing their time in figuring out, what do I want to do with my life?
You're absolutely right. And a key component to someone developing their personal brand is finding a role model or drawing inspiration from a variety of role models. And role models have changed over the years, and how we access role models has changed. And you talked about Gen Z and Gen Alpha now, and so much influence is coming from social media, as you would know, and they are getting their influences from individuals and personalities, from influencers that represent themselves in a certain way, that articulate themselves in a certain way, that show up in life in a certain way, albeit that you're consuming that image, and whether that's an entirely accurate representation of that individual, it's neither here nor there. It's what you're taking from that role model, that impression, and putting it into you turn up. Now, in businesses, leaders have such an incredible power to role model and influence others. And the great leaders I've worked for, I've tried to role model how they do things, how they show up, how they give feedback, how they coach and mentor, how they inspire other people, and how they deal with difficult moments, whether it's in the operation, in customer facing scenarios, or whether you're a team member that's going through a bit of a tough time, actually. And let's face it, hospitality and service giving is hard. I'm not going to pretend it's easy, but you learn so much, and you also need to lean on those role models, those great people that can help you through some of those tough times. So those teachable moments don't leave you; they stay with you and help you build and become stronger. So you grow, learn, and develop.
So many interesting points you've made there. I really love the idea of role model. I feel that role model, it extends beyond a casual mentor or coach. Role model, gosh, I can't even get my words out. Role model extends beyond a coach or a mentor. As you say, it's really that figurehead above you, so to speak, in titles and roles that you can look upon. If you are having a tough time, you want to be a bit more vulnerable, or you just want to learn from somebody who has been in the role for more time than yourself. So role model is a really interesting concept, as you say. And if I look back at my hospitality days in customer service, they were the best days of my life. I was so young when I first started out. I think my first hospitality role was when I was 17, 18, extended straight through to university. So I finished hospitality when I was 24. And the best time, as you say, I learnt so much, speaking to different types of people from all walks of life. If I could go back and do any role, it would be in hospitality. It really was a fantastic time. You're thriving in a team as well. The collaboration really builds your confidence and self-esteem. But as you say, going back to, if you do want to be vulnerable, you can be with a role model. So that's really fantastic to hear. And also, it begs the question for me asking to you, what do you think some of the leaders that you've been around and worked with, what does make them stand out as a role model? What do you think they're doing that's above the curve that maybe anybody listening in who wants to be a leader or is a leader, but maybe wants those strategies?
Yeah, it's such a great question. Well, I mean, one of the key elements that I focus on my leadership training, which is something that over the years looked for in leaders, and to this day still think is a critical component, is your ability to be self-aware, to look at yourself honestly and understand, how do I come across to others? And I try and do this myself, because we never truly know how we can impact others and how others will take what we say in the manner in which we intend it. But having that emotional intelligence and emotional awareness is so important. That component allows you to turn up with authenticity. It allows you to be authentic. It allows you to be that human. And you talked about vulnerability. If I don't see an authenticity from you as a leader, how can I then put myself into a position where I'm okay to be vulnerable? How are you giving me permission to, and how are you granting that psychological safety that lets me speak up and share what I need to get off my chest? Because let's face it, we're all humans, and humans are interesting, dynamic, unpredictable, emotional, sometimes needy, keen to learn, and requiring of of basic care and nurturing, I would say. And then some leaders get it, some don't. And I've worked in some toxic environments, and I've worked in some corporate environments where that authenticity isn't there. You have inauthentic behaviors, which drives disconnection, which doesn't promote psychological safety, which prevents people from speaking up. You then have, silos and behaviors and cultures that perhaps are going to be competition. Yes. Yeah. Competing against one another.
Amongst employees. which isn't always the nicest place to be. I think I would be surprised if there was a person out there who throughout their whole career doesn't go through that. I think there will be elements of toxicity in working environments. It's how you obviously push through. It's unfortunate. I think it is a learning curve for all of us. I think it unveils possibly things about ourselves, good and bad. So it's a positive. As I say, it's always new learning experiences. But I really like what you touched upon when you said neediness, but eager to learn. I think put those two together and you actually have an employee. Yes, they might ask you 20 questions instead of 5, but they're eager. They want to learn more. They want to really get to grips with your business so they can drive the operations and do a good job. So it's flipping the switch on how you approach certain scenarios, and that's what you said before.
You're right, and I think you've got to be able to read the room as a leader. And what I mean by that is look at your team and listen to them and read the body language, the behaviors, the soft skills, the interactions, and interpret what's going on in a way that allows you to understand their preferred learning styles or their neurodiversities. And if someone likes to ask lots of questions, that's not a bad thing. So as a leader, how are you going to respond? Because the only thing that you can choose to do is how you respond. You're responsible for your own thoughts, actions, and behaviors. No one else is. And as a team member, you will see different actions and behaviors. There will be reasons for that manifestation of those actions and behaviors. But as a leader, you need to try and understand and get under the skin of that by monitoring, measuring your own actions and behaviors. And sometimes in appropriate situations, give feedback or coach or mentor or guide. And then, another cliche, the actions speak louder than words. How do you produce a culture for the people around you and outwardly, and most importantly to your customer, that is something that is aligned to where the business is going, what you're trying to achieve, and ultimately gets the best out of others. And there's lots of pseudoscience and psychometrics out of there, and I'm not knocking them as such. It's about finding what works for you. You can go on any of these psychometric tools and evaluations, as many as you like, but if you're not going to do anything with it, then it's a lost cause. So I would think about how do you start by understanding who you are and what you're trying to deliver as a leader or work towards with the people around you, and then think, what do I need to learn and what do I need to bring to the party in order to then help others grow and flourish.
I think that's a really great point at the end. It's constantly upskilling as leaders and educating ourselves about people and processes and how they interplay with the business and what we're driving and what we're striving towards. But I also really loved reading the room, working out who your team are, whether you schedule check-ins, have calls with your team members individually or together. You're hosting workshops, so that's really beneficial as well. But it's definitely getting to the heart of what makes them tick, as I say, as individuals and together. It's really hard to be a leader sometimes because that also involves having hard conversations with your team at different stages of their career, but also not being afraid to do that and standing up for what you believe in and also what you think is right at any given time.
Yeah, it's not hard. It's those that go into a leadership, supervisory, manager position, however you want to characterize it. It is going to be hard. I remember when I was my very first flight in charge on a British Airways aircraft. And I knew I had the aspiration that I wanted to grow and move up the ranks, so to speak. But actually doing it was bloomin' scary. And that very first flight, I'll never forget. Not because bad things happened, but because it just was very much out of my comfort zone and my familiarity. And I mean, in some organizations, you move into a new team and and you're building that relationship. And in other businesses, you're promoted. And so your peers around you are seeing you in a different way. They're seeing you normally, in the past, they've seen you colleague to colleague, and now you're superior to them in organizational structure sense, that is. And so how do I move into this new position and get comfortable in my new shoes without being arrogant, without filling a void with egotistical behaviors, which some leaders do. I think that's a fear-based thing, that they just have to live up to some kind of imaginary figurehead, and be more superior through egotistical behaviors. And that's not going to help inspire the people. What is the authenticity and making mistakes and owning up to that and saying, right, okay, today didn't quite go to plan, did it? But let's learn from that, roll up our sleeves and have another go tomorrow, or get feedback from the team and go, what did I do that could be done a bit better for next time? Because I want you to tell me. They're great leadership qualities, and that's something that I learned along the way, and try and influence others to do as well.
I think also the word resilience comes to mind. So as you say, the day might not pan out the way you want it to, the week might not pan out the way you want it to, the month, the year, but you go into each day the same way as you normally would. You put 110% in, you get feedback, you listen to others, and you just consistently try and try again until something sticks. And that's, you have a winning team and you have a winning business, but it's longevity. Again, I mentioned that earlier on. It's not short-term wins. Customer service, building a team up, building a business up, building your personal brand. These are all stepping stones to get to the destination, and it's a journey, and you have to enjoy it, because I think if you don't enjoy it, then it will become very, very difficult.
It will. And if you're a leader listening to this and you're managing a team of people and perhaps you don't want to, or you found yourself being promoted or going to a job where you like the project side of things, what I call the actual non-people management stuff. Perhaps you're making more strategic decisions, you're running bigger projects, or you're running a department. You've got to then fully embrace the fact that along with that come people, and in life and in business, you can be independent and then interdependent. Quite often businesses, you as a leader, you're having to be interdependent. You're having to interface with others and get others to do things in order to keep the wheels turning. And that can be fun. And I think it's how you approach it. So if you're going into this role and you're thinking, oh my God, how do I even do this? How do I manage people? How do I lead? How do I have challenging conversations? I think the first thing to remember is, well, we've all been there. We've all had to try and learn and cut our teeth in a supervisory leadership scenario. And whilst you can read a book, the best way of doing it is really going out there and having a go and thinking, right, if I've got to have a challenging or crucial conversation with someone or give feedback, plan, think ahead. How am I going to deliver this and deliver it in a objective way that's professional, that lands in that, and allows that person to grow, learn and develop from this. Because if I'm going to go in and I'm just going to shout at someone or just get something off my chest or say, well, why did you do that? That's only serving you. That's only serving your ambition to get something off your chest and momentarily make you feel better. Whereas if you think, I'm going to strip the emotions out of this for a moment and think, how do I best serve that individual, and help them grow, learn and develop? It just transforms your thinking and your approach to those challenging situations, which are quite easily you can walk away from and do nothing and have no accountability, or just blurt something out and be cross in the moment, which can then, as you know, have a bit of a negative reaction also.
So I really liked your point where taking your emotions out of the situation that you're in, Something I try and remind in cybersecurity, for example, there are a lot of challenges we face on a day-to-day basis. We're talking to key stakeholders, really important conversations that we're having. Sometimes they're really hard conversations if it's to do with budgeting or investment, etc., or it's about the team and they're not performing at the standard that they should be. I always say to people, it's not personal. A lot of the conversations that you're having, it's relating to the business. It's not an attack on you and your values as a person. The feedback that you're getting, if it's a report that you've written, if it's just whatever the conversation is that you're having, it should be constructive, and it should be to allow you to improve in the role that you're in the job that you're doing. Of course, as you say, there are times where there may be projections from somebody and it might not totally align with what they're trying to suggest. That's another conversation that you have to have when you feel that it's overstepping the mark and it's no longer feedback, but it's overstepping the line. Again, it's tricky.
Yeah, it is. And I'm not for 1 minute saying that it's all rosy out there and we just can deliver wonderful feedback that's articulate and scripted with in a storytelling fashion. There are moments where you need to jump in and nip something in the bud. And, I quite often use the AID model, AID, which has really helped me. It stands for action, impact, and desire, or do. So if someone's doing something that I need them to stop quickly, I say, well, the action of your behavior is, I've noticed, whether it's, in team meetings, you seem to be you're very busy on your phone, looking down and not paying attention and maintaining eye contact with the rest of the team. The impact is, and the I is impact. So the impact is, it looks as if you're not paying attention, or it looks as if you are distracted. And the D is desire, or do. And what I need you to do is put the phone down to one side, or even in your bag. And during team meetings, at least, let's all face each other, pay attention, maintain that eye contact, and engage. And that will then prevent us from missing something really important as we're collaborating, discussing, problem solving as one team.
And I think you could flip that and actually do it from an employee point of view. I'm such a big advocate for kind of road mapping careers. So the aid model, that action, if an employee is possibly underperforming on a project and you speak to that employee and they say, I just don't find this fulfilling, therefore the action is that I'm not putting 110% in. The I stands for impact will be that I withdraw more from the role and from the company because I'm just not, again, being fulfilled. So the desire is I'd like to use my skill set in this area to then go on to work on these types of projects. So it sounds like it's a bit of a 2 for 2 with the model. You do it from a leader's point of view, depending on your team, but you could also speak to the employee and do something with them.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's going down into the realms of coaching, and there are various different coaching models that you can use. But anything that evokes that two-way conversation, I think, is a good thing. What do you need in this moment? What's working for you? What are you going to do to positively impact that decision, or that action that you want to take, that thing that you want to do differently? And what are the steps that you're going to take? What are you going to do about it? And how can I help you hold yourself accountable to maintaining that and sticking to the doing part so that things can move forward? Those conversations have really helped, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I think that accountability piece is really important as well. You are accountable for yourself in terms of how you educate and upskill. Leaders are accountable for their team, but again, accountable for themselves. And if we go right back to the beginning of our conversation, expectations are higher in customer service. They're higher. People want more with less potentially. So it's how do you navigate trends like that as well? And it leads me on to offering strategies out to any listeners. You have already spoken about this, Richard, but are there any strategies you want to mention in terms of the customer service, in terms of that leadership angle as well?
Well, gosh, how long have you got? I mean,
all the time in the world.
Well, very quickly, I would just say that one of the leadership lessons I've learned is that you've got to work with the team that you've got in a positive way. And it's your responsibility as the leader, if you're identifying skill gaps, to try and work and understand how to bridge those skill gaps. And is it a behavioral gap? Is it a knowledge gap? Is it awareness? Very, very recently, I'll give you an example. I went to a car dealership and I just saw a lot of the team members, sitting around at their desks, looking at their phones. Some of them were just having what I could sense as idle chit chat between themselves. And it doesn't really seem as if there was any leader there kind of managing that environment, managing that culture, managing the energy and attention. And when a customer walks in, at least one of you needs to stop what you're doing, look up and come over and engage. And so a quick fix would be, on a daily basis, what are your quick wins and shout outs that you're celebrating, albeit micro behaviors that work? So someone that answered the phone in a really polite and upbeat way. Sounds simple, but it's so important. We need to sometimes go back to basics. Who out there did something really great for a customer, made them smile, acknowledge something, use their name, for instance? All these little elements need to be celebrated and praised and rewarded in some way, shape or form. So leaders can start doing that. And, team members, if your leaders aren't doing that, get them to do it. I would say suggest it. I'm sure there are mechanisms and moments where you can have speak up sessions or town halls, or even in your one-to-one. If you're not getting what you need from a leader and you're passionate about delivering great service, share what it is you need so that they can best help you and support you. That's what's going to help drive the wheels of change and ultimately improve levels of service. And you can do, more with less. A lot of these things don't cost any money. A smile doesn't cost anything. An upbeat tone, a professional manner on face to face doesn't really cost that much. What it does is it requires an active and engaged mindset that I want to do this. I'm choosing to do this because mediocrity is not good enough. I want to go above and beyond, and that's down to me and nobody else.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. You've really relayed. I think really it's just about being present. It's being there for other people, as we said right at the beginning as well. That act of service, helping others to achieve greatness, to achieve success, whether that's a customer, whether that's one of your team members, either as a leader, whatever capacity you're in. It's about having the right mindset that you need, as I say, to help other people. And I think the strategies that you've got are fantastic. The only other thing I would add, rewards, incentives, celebrating the wins, that's really crucial as well. One thing that I try and advocate for is stand-up calls. You might have them on a weekly basis with your team just to relay KPIs, to talk about what's gone well, what hasn't gone so well, what projects are in the pipeline, etc. Definitely in consultancy, that's what we used to do. Now I suggest that why don't you take the last 5 minutes of the stand-up or a meeting, a team meeting, and just ask everybody, what are you proud of? What have you done that's really made a difference to you and to others? And start talking about it and start celebrating it. So it definitely aligns with what you mentioned as well.
Yeah, and I think that quick huddle or team get together where you hand the reins over and each person gets the opportunity to share something that they like one of their colleagues doing and something that they want them to continue doing is a really powerful thing, because it's then passing that feedback ownership over to the team, and that and they are rewarding one another for the good things that they've noticed each individual doing.
It's empowering to do that, and also collaboration again. The team come together and they're talking to each other. You did this very well. And also you can have a bit of feedback in there if you want. If you're strained or you need help, this might be a good opportunity for you to say where you need that help as well. But it's definitely talking to each other, handing over the reins, that responsibility element, that accountability, going back to that point as well. And it just makes for a better environment. It will help grow the business in ways that you can't imagine. Starts with people because they're driving the processes.
People are your biggest, your people are your strongest or weakest asset in any business. And it's what you choose to do with that resource and how you grow that talent to flourish and best serve your customer is going to be your secret weapon.
Definitely. It's been an absolutely fantastic conversation today. Richard, I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on the podcast. We spoke about customer service and the experience and the premium aspects of what Richard does, but we really dived into being a leader, being a role model, those key strategies for your team, and how to really hand over the reins in a constructive way. So it's been absolutely such an enjoyable experience, Richard. I want to say thank you so much. I will put Richard's website and the links up so you can follow along with him and his journey in the show notes for anybody listening. And I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you very much.